right, and we are back live. It is Monday. Love that time change. No? No? Okay, yeah. There's this old adage that the springtime change, specifically the springtime change, young people hate it. Parents love it. Parents absolutely love it because my kids slept in this morning. It was great. I didn't. I woke up terribly. But anyway, whatever, regardless. I'm going to put a little note in the live chat right now. My apologies to those in the live chat. You will not be getting candy today. Sad noises. Yeah, I don't know how to type sad noises, you know? Like, how do you actually type? I put noises. Hold on. Correction. Noises. There we go. Noise. Anyway, I do have some candy to do the several examples with today, simply because it is one of the better ways to kind of show how to do this next fair division method that we have been working on. But before we actually get there, let me give you the heads up as to what's going to be happening this week. I told you about it last week, but Wednesday, I will not be here. I will be getting my second vaccination shot. But definitely make sure that you are ready to go with whatever assignment that I'm going to be assigning you. And it will be through Google Classroom. The attendance, I'm assuming whoever's going to be in here covering the class is going to be taking an attendance. But I'm going to be going back and checking their information to make sure everything's accurate, number one. Number two, obviously, the people online, how are they supposed to let the person know that they're here? They can't. So for the people online, it is vitally important that you access the assignment in Google Classroom, complete whatever I'm asking you to complete, submit it, and that would count as an attendance, and I will go back and fix that attendance. So please, by all means, those of you in the live chat, leave a comment now. On Wednesday, you will not be able to because there will not be a live stream on Wednesday. So, beyond that, we kind of are coming up to the end of the Fair Division chapter. We're about a week or two out from the end of the Fair Division chapter. There's this method that I'm going to be teaching you today, method of markers. Not markers like you draw on the board, but you'll see. And then there is a last diminisher method that I'm going to be teaching as well, but I'm not going to be focusing on that today. My focus is going to be on method of markers and making those people jealous that they're not here and they can't get candy this early in the morning. Obviously, you don't have to eat it. It's going to be in wrappers. So, anyway, let me think if there was anything else. After we finish the Fair Division lessons, which we'll most likely finish on Friday with last diminisher, I do plan on reviewing this stuff and getting in a major assessment to cover the end of the Fair Division chapter. But we'll get there. Oh, we will get there. It's going to be crazy. Did y'all hear all the teachers being called down this morning or being called told to call the office? There was at least if I had to get a good estimate, 15 teachers were called to call the main office, possibly to cover classes. Yeah, I don't even know. Just what is going on? Thankfully, I am not one of them. I don't like covering classes. I like having my time. That's why having a study hall is a good idea, because if you have a study hall, they can't pull you from that study hall. Anyway, and yes, as always, for those people in the live chat, if you leave a comment, that'd be fantastic. I can see 2 comments so far. That'd be great. To get this thing started, I'm going to need those notebooks out and open. That was my big wave now. I know. After a week of it being extra warm, now the weather's kind of going back and forth a bit. But it's okay. It'll be warm before you know it. Let's see what we got here. Today is the 15th. I'm gonna tell you something that I've told a few classes in the past, because I know what yesterday was. I am one of the few math teachers in the world that hate Pi Day. I hate Pi Day. Pi Day is such an overrated day. It's such an overrated day. Pi is not as important as you guys put on it. Or it doesn't have as much importance as one puts on it. It doesn't. Outside of perfect circles, where do you use pi? Or where does pi show up outside of perfect circles? Well, not so much use it. Let me rephrase it to where does it show up, though? It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Later on in this course, later on in this semester, I'm going to be teaching you about a much more important number called phi, P-H-I. It's much more important. And even though you don't utilize it in real life, this number follows you around. It is embedded within the human body. It is embedded within natural objects in the world, animals, flowers, spirals. Like the leaf. You ever watch like a flower grow and it has like petals and junk like coming up? The petals don't come up perfectly like they would in a kid's picture. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't just come out to the side like in a picture. They come up in a very specific pattern, and they come up in a pattern whose ratio is measured by the number phi. The reproduction rate in rabbits is measured by the number phi. The spirals in a pineapple versus the spirals in the seeds of a head of a sunflower are measured by the number phi. It's pretty insane. All the way to the shape of our galaxy is measured by the number phi. But we'll get there.
So when's phi?
Technically, phi is the number 1.618, and then it goes on forever like pi. So unfortunately, you can't really do it, you know. But I mean, you could have done it on January 6th of 2018, but neither here nor there. Let's talk method of markers. Again, method of markers, they're not talking about the type of markers that I draw with. They're talking about a different type of marker. Marking a location. Marking a dividing line. That is the type of marker that they are referring to. Now, a couple of key items before we actually get into it. I want you to be able to understand these bullet points. First of all, to use method of markers, you have to have many more items to be divided than players. In this case, we have 3 players in the room, and I have way more than 3 items to be divided. There has to be many more items to be divided than players. You can't really do method of markers if there's a low number of items. If there are 3 players and there are like 5 items, that gets a little dicey. 4 items, 3 items, next to impossible. Can't really do it. 2 items? No, absolutely not. There has to be many more items to be divided than players. Furthermore, each item is relatively close in value. Each item has to be relatively close in value. Last class, not last class, but in the past few class periods, we did method of sealed bids, in which when I did my example with you guys, there was a brand new TV and a brand new car. Unfortunately, those 2 items are not close in value, no matter what way you slice it. They're not close in value. Now, like I said, I have a bunch of mini candy things for you, mini chocolate bars for you. Those chocolate bars are relatively close in value. Now, you may value one way more than the other, which is fine, but they're relatively close. Like, oh, this one's a nickel, and this one's like 8 cents. I don't know, it depends. But they're relatively close in value. Furthermore, for method of markers, no money is required. No money is required. Unlike method of sealed bids, where there had to be some kind of settlement in which people would either pay or get money, method of markers, no money is required to actually divide it the way we need it to be divided. So, getting into the details then. Oh, you know what I forgot to purchase an X-Acto knife. It has nothing to do with you guys. I need it for a different class. Some kids are getting out of hand. No, but I do need it for another class, though. I do. I got to leave myself a note. Hold on. X-Acto knife. I need it for tomorrow. I meant to go out this weekend and get it. Let's put it right here. I'll remember that. Okay, back to this. So there are some preliminaries that we have to deal with. Some preliminaries that we are going to do when we set up our method of markers. You are to make if I can spell it today, random array of the items. If you don't make a random array of the items, then one or more players might be able to use that to their advantage to get way more than they bargained for compared to the other players. There has to be a random array of items. And once you set that up, you're ready. You're literally ready. That's all you really have to do to set this thing up. Make a random array of the items, which I will do once I get everything out of the bags. Then there comes the bidding. And you guys are going to do the bidding. Once I have everything set up, you're going to think about it. And I'm going to talk to you about how the bidding actually takes place. Now, imagine this random array of items. And I'm going to just temporarily draw something on the board, just so you can kind of visualize it before I break out the bag of candy. But if I had a random array of items like this, there's all of the candy bars, mini candy bars, of course, kind of going across like that. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's make it 10. I'm going to make it uneven for all of you. Because there's 9 of you, or there's 3 of you. I didn't want to make it a 9. So then the bidding takes place. Each player secretly notes where their markers will be placed to make fair shares. Each player secretly notes where their markers will be placed in order to make fair shares. Now, these fair shares are in the opinion of the player. They're in the opinion of the player. They will not be trying to make someone else feel better about, oh, I want this candy bar, I want that candy bar. No, you are to secretly note where their markers will be placed in order to make fair shares. So what's going to happen when you guys actually do this? You would decide precisely where your markers would be placed. Now, question. If there are 3 of you, how many markers does one person need in order to make enough fair shares? Yeah. If there are 3 of you, you only need to place 2 markers. Because if I place my marker here and here, then boom, there's 3 shares. If that's what I decided to do. Again, I don't know. I don't know what these items are. You'll know what these items are once I actually break out the actual items. But you'll see it when we get there. So ultimately, if there are 3 people, you're going to be placing down 2 markers. If there are 5 people, you would be placing down 4 markers and trying to make 5 fair shares. The number of markers is based on the number of players within that particular division. So each player secretly notes where they're going to place their marker. So when I do this with you guys, again, each of these would be numbered like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would give you guys a index card, which I will in a little bit, and you would note, okay, I want my markers between 3 and 4. I would like 1 marker there, and I would like another marker between 8 and 9. I want another marker there. And that's where I would believe my fair shares would be. Not all candy bars are created equal. Maybe there was a bunch of candies in the middle that you really didn't like, and maybe your favorites were both down here. I don't know. It really depends on what the candy bars actually are. So I actually want to do that before I talk about the allocation. I want to actually make the bids before we actually do the allocation, because the allocation does take a little bit of writing to get into it. So let's break out them candy bars. Thankfully, they're all wrapped, so you don't have to worry about opening them now. I had to hide these for my kids and for myself. But yeah, I got a mini pack here. Tear here. Come on. It says tear here. Come on. What the heck? Okay, bag, you're not going to beat me. Aha. Take that bag. Candy. Huh? I know. You know what's interesting about this bag that I'm looking at it now? Hold on, let me try to zoom out a little. It looks like there's only like 1 crackle, which I really like crackle. There's a whole bunch of Hershey peanut butter cups. And there's like, I don't know. This is like an uneven bag. Whatever. Don't care. That's the point, though. Go away, candy bag. Okay. So let's see. You guys are going to attempt. Let's see. Hold on. There's an announcement.
Good morning. Please excuse the interruption. Teachers and students just want to make you aware that beginning today, after school, from 11:40 to 1:50, we will have our library open. If you have any work that you are having to make up, or if you have work with a teacher that you need to make up, the library will be open and supervised. You can sign up at the library. Thank you. Have a great day.
Why wouldn't they like tell people beforehand? Whatever. Anyway, announcements. Okay, so I'm going to set up 10 pieces of candy here. Let's put it one of there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I want to save that one for later. And 10. There we go. So there are the 10 pieces of candy that we will start with. Oh, let me put the rest of them over here for now. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That one. There we go. Cool. So random array, random array, random array. They can't be in any discernible order, random array. So now I'm going to line them up. Okay, good. Zooming out. So we got a Hershey bar. I'll line it up like this. I got a Mr. Good bar with peanuts. Got a peanut butter cup. Got 3 Hershey Kisses in a row. Special dark chocolate, another peanut butter cup, and another Hershey bar on the end right here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I am going to mark them on the board in a moment. I'm just trying to spread them out. There we go. There's the random array. Where are, there they are. My little note card is right here. Here we go. Take one pass back. Here we go. So, with that note card, put your name on it because I got to know whose marker is whose, obviously. And I'm going to number these up here so that you know which one's which specifically. There we go. Numbers 1 through 10. Now, your job is to figure out where you would place your markers in order to make 3 fair shares. Now, it's in your opinion. Your opinion. Where would you put the dividing line in order to make 3 fair shares? You can't rearrange it. You cannot rearrange the candy. So if you decide it's like, okay, here, then boom, this is what you would deem to be a fair share. You're trying to split the pile up into 33.3% because of the 3 players here. So in your opinion, write down where you would place the markers. And once you have done that, I'm going to mark up here what the heck happened. Now, we will put a version of this into our notes. In fact, I'm going to preemptively draw this so I don't lose the order of the candies here, so that I have a copy of this. Will I be able to fit this? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So this is that's a Hershey. That's a Good Bar. That's I'm just gonna put Reese's.
Should we do that too?
Eventually. I'm gonna redraw this. I wanted to have a copy of this so I didn't lose the order of it. I'm gonna redraw this in a little bit. There we go. Okay, you good? Okay. Are you still deciding? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Now, mind you, I can't put yours up here until I get theirs because it's supposed to be in secret. You know? Good? Okay. Yeah. Now, obviously, there may be a little bit of overlap, but we'll see what happens here. Because people have different opinions on candies. If this were my wife, she would want the Reese's. She would absolutely want the Reese's. But like I said, there is a method to this madness. If it were me, I don't know what I'd want. You know what candies are the best? Rolos.
Those are so good.
Right? Just saying, Rolos are the absolute best. Because it's like, you can have like 2 or 3, and it doesn't feel like you're eating a ton of candy. And if you eat them just right, they can last a long time. Just saying. Okay, let's see what we got here. Interesting. Oh, these are almost like not perfectly identical, but let's just see what happens here. Okay. So I'm going to put a P1 right here for Patrick and a P2 right here for Patrick. I'm going to put N1 right there and an N2 right there and an A1 there and A2 there. Interesting. Oh, goodness. Let's see how this actually works out and plays out. We're going to have a lot of ties here. Okay. Got it. Let me write out the procedure for you before we actually divide this up, because the procedure is going to help you understand how I did what I did here. But there is a fair way to go about this. This one might be a little bit more obvious than others. I'll draw this picture out. Actually, you know what? I'm going to draw this picture out now. Yeah. So I'm going to draw this picture. I'm going to have you guys do the same thing in your notes, just so I can move the candy off the screen and still have a copy of it in my notes. So I'm going to try and label these as best I can. There's the Hershey's, just abbreviating. There is the Good Bar. There is the Reese's. I'll just put RE for Reese's. RE for Reese's. And then 3 in a row is a kiss, Hershey Kiss. Let's just do that. K-I, K-I, K-I. There we go. And then the dark chocolate, so we'll just put a dark. And then another Reese's for R-E. And another Hershey's, G-R-S. There we go. Top tier candy artist is what she says. No, thank you. I'm not. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, good. Now, and I'm going to put the markers up here. So, I moved the candy already. That's okay. I have your cards at the very least up here. So I'll take these and I'll erase these. Boom. And then I'm going to walk you through this procedure. So the way that we did this, zooming in right here, here we go. The way that we did this between, boom, right there, there was a P1. That's where Patrick put his first marker. And that was between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So between 6 and 7 is where he put his second marker. And then Nicole put her first marker also right here. But then she put her second marker right there. Allison put her first marker right there. And her second marker, 6 and, oh no, that's Patrick's again. Between 3 and 4 and then 7. There we go, there we go. A2. So if you notice, each marker is usually indicated in order to determine which player it is. Sometimes they just use the letters A, B, C, D to represent each player, but there's always like a little subscript on there indicating which marker it is. They go in order left to right. They always start at 1. They go up to however many markers they placed. Now here's the procedures for allocation. Here are the procedures for allocation. And that's why I wanted to copy that down, so I had a copy of that. But boom. So what we do is we go left to right until first number 1 marker. And then we would allocate. I'm going to talk about what do you do in the event of a tie, but we'll deal with that. Now, when I say the first number 1 marker, I'm referring to the fact that each of you had a number 1 marker. Each of you had a marker that would be deemed your first marker. So in this case, in this example, all 3 of you placed your first marker at the exact same spot. Wow, that doesn't help us much, but we'll deal with that. We'll figure this out. Now, when I say allocate, typically what happens is you would go all the way left to right until you hit that first number 1 marker. And then when I say allocate, it means that, well, let's just pretend for a moment that I would give that first allocation to Patrick. If I gave that first allocation to Patrick, then I would say, right here, boom, those are Patrick's. That's what he sees as a fair share. So you walk away with your fair share, and now you're done for the time being. I say for the time being because there is not for this one, but there is a possibility of ties or not and leftovers. We'll talk about that afterwards. But then you would walk away with that, and we'd be like, okay, fine and dandy, let's keep moving. Now, in this case, I actually do have a slightly better idea as to how to properly allocate this, but we'll deal with that in a minute. That's why I wrote that in dry erase so I can get rid of that. Then, moving that up, we would continue left to right until first number 2 marker.
So would you just disregard all of the other
All of, in this example, Patrick's, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually I was going to put something like that. I was going to say ignore any player who has already been allocated. Ignore any player who has already been allocated. There it is. Which I have some textbook examples for you that I'm going to bring up on the screen after we actually give you this candy. But we'll deal with that in a minute. So in our example, if I go back down right here, if I gave Patrick this first share, if I did, because there was a tie there, then I would keep going left to right until I hit the first number 2 marker, which we ignore Patrick's because he's already been allocated. And then, okay, well, there's Nicole's number 2 marker. Okay, fine. And then we would allocate a share to her. Now, in this case, from here to here, this is what Nicole would deem a fair share. That middle section right there. So give her that middle section. Happy day. Now, obviously, there's only one player left. But for this method, you can technically have like a lot of players. Depends on how many items you have, of course. Continue until each player has fair share. Ties are broken randomly. Ties are broken randomly. Now, this could be any which way. You could do between 2 people. You could do rock, paper, scissors. Obviously, there's 3 of you. So, we'll just pick like a random number or something like that. I don't know. But ties are to be broken randomly. And I'm going to walk you through a few methods of doing this. And then you are to divide leftovers randomly. Now, in this candy example, there is the possibility of like having 1 or 2 pieces of candy left over. But if we do follow the rules of allocation, every player should have a fair share in their minds. And if there are any leftovers, then that's a bonus. And if one person gets a bonus, so be it, because it's going to be randomly allocated. Ties are broken randomly as well, which we do have multiple ties here, which we're going to do. So, if I were going back to this little candy example right here, I follow my rules. I say, okay, I'm going to go left to right until I come up to the first marker. So left to right, Hershey, Good Bar, Reese's, boom. I come up to the first number 1 marker, and it's a 3-way tie. Well, in the order that I wrote them, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be random, but in the order that I wrote them Patrick, Nicole, Allison. I am going to go to a calculator. Can't really flip a coin here because that's 2 sides. You could do a 3-way paper, rock, scissors, but that gets a little bit complicated as well. So at this point, just, it could be just random. So what's today's date? 3/15/21. I'm going to store that to random. There we go. And then I'm going to select a random integer from 1 to 3. Boom. So Allison, because you're the third one. It was a Patrick, Nicole, Allison. So in that case, you would get the first share. There we go. So let me do that. Boom. This share would go to Allison. Then I would follow the rules. The next rule says to continue going left to right until you come to the first number 2 marker. Well, okay, from that share, I'm going left to right until I come to the first number 2 marker, which in this case is Patrick by himself. So I don't have to do any kind of randomness. Now that I've come up to the first number 2 marker, I basically go from Patrick's number 1 marker to Patrick's number 2 marker, and I just basically say, hey, there's a fair share for Patrick, because that's what he deemed to be a fair share. Now, in this case, I would continue until each player has a fair share. So logically, it's like, okay, well, let me go left and right until I come up to the first number 3 marker. Well, there is no number 3 marker in this example. In future examples, there will be. But since Nicole is the only player that has not been allocated a share of the candy, all I would have to do is find out where her last marker was, which in this case is right here. And because she put her marker there, this is a fair share to Nicole. So number 1, in the event of a tie, you just have to randomly break the tie. You can figure out amongst the players in the game how you're going to break that tie. You could flip a coin. You could do paper, rock, scissors. In this case, I decided to do a random integer from 1 to 3. And Allison, you won that. So you got that share. Then I would go to the first number 2 marker, which in this case was Patrick's, allocate his share from P1 to P2. And then since Nicole is the last one, well, N2 all the way to the end is what she would deem a fair share. Well, what's one thing that you notice about all the candy here so far? What do you notice? Something should be glaringly screaming at you guys. There's one. Well, it's not a Reese's.
Oh, it isn't?
No,
Oh,
it's a Hershey Kiss.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
One Hershey Kiss.
one Hershey Kiss is left over. Yeah, there's one Hershey Kiss left over. That's a leftover piece of candy. I don't get it. But according to the directions, ties are broken randomly, and you are to divide the leftovers randomly. So at this moment, at this exact moment right here, Allison is going to get these 3 pieces of candy. Patrick is going to get these 3 pieces of candy. And Nicole is going to get, if I could bring these up here, these 3 pieces of candy. But there is one solitary Hershey Kiss left over. If I could bring that up right there. There it is right there. According to the directions, we just randomly divide it. Now, when I say divide it, you can't, we're not going to actually divide the Hershey Kiss. We're just going to randomly give it to one of you. Because at this moment, each of you is going to get a share that is fair, and one of you is going to get a little bit left over. Oh, well, them's the breaks. These are the rules you all agreed to. I'm going to get candy. So I'm going to go back to my calculator. I'm going to do rand int 1 to 3 again. I'm going to go the same order. Number 1, Patrick. Number 2, Nicole. Number 3, Allison. That's the same order, just as it was before. Chapow! And it was Allison again. Yeah. Okay, so you get the leftover. So I'll give you your candies, because I'm not going to keep these.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're all wrapped up and good to go. And I sanitized before I started. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, in the end, there has to become some kind of a wrap-up. There has to be some kind of a wrap-up at the end of these allocations in which you determine who is getting what items. Now, again, we numbered them 1 to 10. I labeled them as their Hershey's or Reese's or whatever. But there has to be some kind of wrap-up that I'm going to do at the bottom of this page right here. So let's see. There we go. Cool. So Allison gets numbers 1 to 3. Patrick gets numbers 4 to 6. Nicole gets numbers 8 to 10. And now after Allison's 1 to 3, I would also put comma. That was what, number 7? Number 7. Yeah. There's my allocation. That's who got what according to this method. It's a pretty sweet method. The people at home don't get me. But yeah, that's what we would do with this. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, in Google Classroom last Thursday, I posted this PDF right here. On Google Classroom last Thursday, I posted that PDF. I opened that PDF and I went down to, I don't even know what page this is. It's page 121 on the PDF, page 9 on the PDF, but it's page 121 on the textbook or whatever. And it's a little difficult to see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit right here. Zoom back out tiny. There we go. Where now we have this example. Method of markers. Now, again, like I said, this is in your Google Classroom. You have a copy of this PDF. So again, for the and I do have to move it because there's a giant glare on part of the method. But for those of you in the chat, the PDF is in the Google Classroom stream, so you can obviously see what you need to see there if need be. Good, I moved it up and out of the glare, kind of. Hold on. Yeah, kind of. Okay, good. All right. So number 59, 3 children, A, B, and C, are dividing an array of 13 candy pieces shown in the accompanying figure using the method of markers. The players' bids are indicated in the figure. Now, what you guys gave me on the blue index card, that was your bid. Your bid being, well, this is what I would deem to be a fair share. Now, these kids have already placed their markers. Now, we don't know what these candies are, but the indication is that they are different candies. The indication is also that they've been placed randomly. They have to be placed randomly. It says to describe the allocation of candy to each child, and then it just simply asks what items are left over. Now, in real life, if there are leftover items, we would randomly give them, which we did. Well, let's just see what happens. I go left to right until I come up to the first number 1 marker, which in this case is player B. And since that first player 1 marker is the only one that's there, boom, that's what B gets. That's what B gets. B is done. B walks away from the table. B might get a leftover in the end, but we'll see what happens. Then I would go left to right until I come to the first number 2 marker. Now, like you asked before, yes, we ignore B now. B is done. We ignore any B number 2 marker. But the first number 2 marker that we come up to is actually C. So since C is the first number 2 marker, C gets that. I go from C1 to C2, and boom, that is what C would determine a fair share is. Now, I would keep going, left to right until I come to the first number 3 marker. But again, it's not really neither here nor there. There's no number 3 marker, but A is the only child that has not been given a share. So this would be a fair share to A. Oh, forgot to put an A there. That would be a fair share to A. That's where A placed the marker. So in this case, describe the allocation of candy to each child. Well, A would get 10 to 13. B would get 1 to 3. C would get 5 to 7. Which items are left over? 4, 8, and 9. And then 4, 8, and 9 would just be randomly given to any of the 3 children. Since there are 3 leftover items, yay, oh happy day, you just assign them randomly. That's literally method of markers. It's kind of straightforward, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I guess that kind of works. But again, keep in mind, number one, no money is involved. Number two, each item has to be relatively close in value. Number three, they have to be randomly arrayed. Go ahead.
Are there like random leftovers?
Yes.
Like, would you like take each piece of candy and then do like the, like say like the calculator method for each one, so like there's a possibility that someone gets all three, or would you just like?
Oh, good question.
Or would you just like assign it?
That's a really good question. It depends on what they decide. Because think about it. At this moment, each child has a fair share. Every child has a fair share. Every child's walking away with an amount of candy that they feel, yes, this is fair for me. I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? Everything else is just bonus. So if the children decide, like, okay, there are three pieces, let's just divide them up one at a time randomly, they could decide that. If they want to do like a game, like the calculator thing that we just did, or rock, paper, scissors, or whatever, and one kid ends up with the leftovers, all the leftovers, if that's what they decided, then sure. But they have to agree on it. Yeah. The major thing is everyone getting a fair share. And once everyone gets a fair share, then it's like, well, leftovers, you know. It's interesting because with the method of sealed bids, it wasn't fair when I forget who got the TV and who got the car. And Nicole got the car? Cool. In the end, it was, allocated, hey, you guys got what you wanted, but Patrick got nothing. He got absolutely nothing. And the only way to make that fair was some kind of redistribution of money before the end of the method of sealed bids. Whereas here, there's no money involved. And all three of you got a fair share, and there was one candy left over. So we just decided, okay, one of you is just randomly going to get it, It's interesting. I had a conversation with somebody the other day about fairness and what's ingrained in our minds. You know what I'm saying? Like there is this universal rule that no one talks about. For example, you've been sitting in that desk for the entire class period, right? If you were to get up and sharpen your pencil and you came back and you found someone sitting in your desk, wouldn't you be a bit peeved? That's not your desk though, right? Technically. But you would be peeved because there's this unspoken rule of, that's my chair. Like what are you doing? But it's just like this universal sense of like, well, it's fair because I was sitting there and that's where I've been assigned to sit. Get out of my chair, kind of thing. This idea of fairness in fair division is just, well, everyone needs to get what is fair. And then if there's leftovers, we'll deal with leftovers. Let me go down to this example. Not this one. Maybe it's this one. There it is. I found it. It's number 63. It's number 63. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's what I'm going to have you guys do.
Why are you laughing?
I'm going to have you figure it out. Now, like I said, obviously, this is a bit difficult to see very in good detail for those of you on the computer, but the PDF of this is in the Google Classroom from last Thursday, so you have a copy of it, but this is number 63. I want to give you guys a few minutes. Now, obviously, you don't have to share your answer, but I want you to give this a try, figure out who gets what. Don't worry about assigning leftovers because the next question is, what are the leftovers? Okay? So write this down on a separate sheet of paper. You're going to keep it for yourself, but I'm going to give you a few minutes to get number 63 done. Now, there are 5 players. And if you notice, there are 5 players. The largest marker that's up there is marker 4. So you would continue going left to right, just like the directions state, until you come up to the first number 1 marker, and then the first number 2 marker. And every time you come up to that first numbered marker, you would allocate a share. So take a few minutes, see what you can do with it. How far did you get?
I got like
Okay. Let's see what happens. So left to right. Now I use orange. Left to right. The first number one marker that you come up to is C. C automatically gets that stuff. C is done. C is out of the picture. You don't have to worry about any of the C markers anymore. So I continue going left to right until I come up to the first number two marker, which in this case happens to be C, but like we said, we ignore that now. So it's E. E is getting the next allocated share. E is getting 5 to 8. Now, yes, there's a leftover thing, but again, there's going to be leftovers. Nothing we can do about that. So now I go left to right until I come to the first number 3 marker, which is C. Ignore it. D. D is getting the next share. D is going to get 11 to 13. 11 to 13 because that is what D has deemed a fair share from 2 to 3. So I go left to right until I come to the first number 4 marker, which is C, which I've already done, D, which I've already done, B and E, but I've already done E. E is out. So B is getting the next allocated share from 15 to 17. The only one that has not been allocated a share, which by the way, I got to do D here and B here. There we go. The only one that has not been allocated a share has been what? A. So since that's the case, you find the last A marker, fair share for A. Yeah. The last A marker, because if A placed the marker there, then to the end, that's a fair share for A. And then 4, 9, 10, 14, and 18 are all left over, which just so happen to be 5 pieces of candy, and there's 5 players. That's not always going to be the case, clearly. When we did it, we only had 1 left over. But yeah. It's a unique method because it's just like it works so ingeniously. It just works. And you're like, oh man, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, it does. And then I would just indicate like, oh, the leftovers are randomly allocated to the 5 players. Yeah, done and done. I love it. Obviously, there's issues that come into play with this. Obviously, the issues that we ran into with ties, and we had to describe a situation in which we had to allocate and then move on from there and then figure out who was going to get what as a result. But that's the method of markers. Now, what's the announcement? So that's that? They're just calling people down. Or not calling people down, but they're getting people to cover classes. Anyway, the what? Oh, for real? I heard about that from a couple people. So why are you guys even here today? If we have like all these teachers out, like I'm going to keep my opinion to myself. Anyway, for those of you in the chat, if you haven't left a comment already, please make sure that you do so. Like I said, I am going to be eventually gearing up for a major assessment for this chapter. Yeah, and Wednesday, you got to get on Google Classroom. People in the live chat, you got to get on Google Classroom because there will not be a live stream on Wednesday. I've been prepping you guys for 2 or 3 class periods now, I think, right? So if they don't do it, that's on them. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. Bye-bye. Chaboom. Nicole, I did get your email. I didn't get